I give you the worst picks in every single round, rounds 1 through 8. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.
Make sure you click the link below for the best picks in every round, round 1 through 8. That's in the description. Kicking off with round number 1. I'll be honest with you, there's not much wrong with anybody in round 1. There's no avoids or bust candidates. I mean, Lamb, love him. Tyreek Hill, smash. Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown's early in this draft, very early in this draft, but I still love A.J. Brown. It's not a bad pick inside the bottom of round number 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown, love him. Justin Jefferson, don't love him early, but he's still very much worth the middle of the first round. Breece Hall, Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua. There's no bad pick in round 1. I think round 1 is the outlier in that there's no player falling into round 1 or rising up into round 1 that shouldn't be there. There's no pitfalls or avoids, except for maybe if you want to have a conversation about a 28-year-old Christian McCaffrey that's been overworked for years, that does have an injury history that he did kind of shake loose, but his coach either will run him into the ground this year or maybe they dial him back so much that it impacts his fantasy production. That would be the only concern. 28-year-old running back, very tough to doubt. No one's running away from him, but there are concerns about what we just saw with Austin Eckler, which we predicted on this channel. Stay away from Austin Eckler at all costs last year in your 2024 fantasy football drafts. He was a must avoid in June, July, August, September. Whenever you were drafting, you heard me saying stay away from the 28-year-old running back that just had a remarkable 2022 season. He walked into the age of 28, that 28-year-old season last year, on top of the world. Everybody said he can't drop off. He was so great last year. He dropped off. He was 28. It happens. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. This is the worst pick in each round. I'm not going to coin McCaffrey as a bad pick, but it is the only player I'm looking around going, there's risk involved. Sure. The upside's equally as massive, though. Last year, McCaffrey was 90% upside, maybe 80% upside with some risk because of all the injury history he brought into the situation. But he's, like I said, kind of staved off the injury label, right? But he's 28 years old. He may have shifted over to a 50-50, but the 50% upside is still so massive. It's win a league massive. It is worth taking the gamble in a handful of leagues that you get the 1.1. Maybe go lamb chops in a couple of those 1.1 situations. You could go Bijan. You could go Breece Hall. You could go with Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase. There's nothing wrong with going any one of those players at 1.1 in a few of your drafts, especially if you're doing underdog fantasy. Promo code Smitty, where they match your first deposit up to 50%. So you deposit the $10 minimum, they give you $5. You deposit $100, they give you $50. But on underdog fantasy, promo code Smitty, if you're drafting and you get the one pick every 8 to 10 times, and you're lucky enough to get that kind of draw, you have to go McCaffrey in a handful of those, but there's no reason you have to lock every 1.1 down to Christian McCaffrey. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close this out. We're going to go ahead and put an NA inside round 1, which, it is what it is. There's just nobody that is considered or deemed a bad pick in round number 1. Let's go to round number 2. The worst pick in round number 2, if it was up to me, and this does not mean I hate the player, it doesn't mean that there's zero chance that they deliver, it doesn't mean that I'm running away from said player in the right scenario, meaning they fall another round or two that changes their ADP and evaluation and expectation. Think about it from this perspective. If Derrick Henry was going around 1 or the top 14, I'd be out. I would want nothing to do with Derrick Henry. That's too high of a risk. However, you put him in round 3 or 4 where Derrick Henry's going, you're packaging in and baking in every single bit of risk. He flips from avoid line in the sand in 3rd round territory. He flips into absolute go-get must-have. So we have to look at ADP to determine where we value a player, how we value a player, what does the risk look like, how much risk is baked in, how much risk is even involved at that point. You draft a Alvin Kamara in round 6 or 7 right now. There's almost no risk at all. It's all upside. So that's the game we play. everything is based around ADP and cost of entry and the risk involved. I have to say, okay, so there are several players. I'm going to throw them all on the screen just so you understand what I'm dealing with and what I'm juggling in terms of players to avoid in round 2, because there's 3 or 4 of them I just don't like at all. Davante Adams is going in round 2, and I don't like it one single bit. This reminds me exactly of the Derrick Henry example. If he was going in round 4, round number 3, it would make a whole big hell of a difference for me. I'd be drafting the hell out of him in round 4. I'd be contemplating him strongly and drafting him on occasion in round 3 with a smile sometimes, and then, I'd think about, okay, who's throwing to him. But in round 2, there's no reason to be drafting a receiver that you just saw the footage, I think. Go check my Instagram, where he's talking about getting hospital balls fed to him by Jimmy G, and he's got to get the hell out of there. He's not gonna make it in LV if he stays. That's essentially what this guy's saying. And to be honest with you, even though he believes in Pierce, I don't know that his situation's going to change that much. He's going to be getting hospital balls in LV with Minshew and with O'Connell. This is not an amazingly set up offense. It doesn't feel like it's going to be that much better than it was last year. And the unfortunate part about Adams is if he gets banged up, and I predicted this with Adams or Jacobs or both of them last year, I said it happened with at least one of them, that they get to week 14, week 15, they're banged up and they sit out the remainder of the season to protect themselves, to get the next contract, to make sure they're not getting crushed and just absolutely eliminated from the next season because of a hospital ball that's thrown up. And Adams is already frustrated enough. He's already at the end of his road in LV. He's giving it another chance. He believes in Pierce, but Pierce absolutely diarrheaed the bed when it came to the quarterback drafting in the NFL draft, letting Penix get taken, letting Nix not fall, not getting aggressive and going and getting one of those quarterbacks, not going after Justin Fields for a ham sandwich. Fields was given away free, and they did nothing. The Raiders have sat on their hands, and I don't believe Pierce has proven to me he has the makings of being anything more than just a player's coach, an exciting guy that can talk to his team, motivate them, but clearly he crapped the bed. He had multiple opportunities to get a quarterback into LV. He did nothing. So I have a feeling Adams is going to have a very, very frustrating, disappointing year, and there's all kinds of talk about him getting traded to the New York Jets and playing with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers was walking on the golf course the other day, and they asked him some questions, and then all of a sudden they go, how do you like the chances of Davante Adams and LV getting good footballs thrown to him and offensive coordinator? What are you thinking about all that? And he says, I love Davante Adams. I can't wait to play with Davante Adams again. And it's like, you got 1 or 2 years left, Aaron Rodgers. So you talking about this year? And he doesn't control everything. The Raiders may not want to trade Davante Adams, but if they've got nothing to play for 3 weeks into the year, who knows when this could take place? This could turn into something. I'm not saying that it can't. I would love Davante Adams somewhere else. I don't know that in the Jets it would be tough, because Garrett Wilson's going to command a ton. Breece Hall's going to command a ton. It'd be a better situation than LV to have Aaron Rodgers, familiar Aaron Rodgers, feeding him the ball. But you can't make a draft selection in round 2 based on an assumption that a trade may go down. So at the end of the day, this is one of the worst picks in round number 2. No matter which way you spin it, there's just no way around it. I think probably the next worst pick, and I'm not saying this is number 1, but there are several that are contending for this worst pick in round 2. It's a bad round in terms of what's really happening in round 2. I'll tell you what's happening in round 2. This wide receiver mentality in best ball is consuming everyone, and everyone's following the leader. Everybody's copycatting this type of thing, and it's taking and borrowing players that belong in rounds 3 and 4 in some cases and dragging them into round 2 because people are consuming wide receivers at a crazy rate. And therefore you're taking a Waddle who belongs in round 3, and Adams who belongs in round 3, and you're dragging them into round 2 because you badly want to copy the person next to you. And there's so much content being created on wide receiver and best ball. And even if we're talking best ball, I'm not liking this. Even if we're talking best ball, this is a mistake, because people are borrowing these names from a round they do not belong in. Another player that is the same thing is occurring with, where he's being dragged into the round number 2, and he does not belong in round number 2, is Nico Collins. The receivers are getting overvalued, overdrafted in fantasy. They have no business being in round 2. I like Nico Collins. This is not a knock on Nico. Nico could have a rotational wide receiver 1 type season like he did with Tank Dell last year before Dell went down. But Dell's going in round 4. Nico's going in round 2. If Dell was going in round 2, I wouldn't draft Dell either. It wouldn't be because I don't like Dell. I wouldn't take Dell because his cost of entry was ridiculous. Just like Nico's is, just like Waddle's is, just like Adams is, because people are freaking out and they're consuming wide receivers at a crazy rate, driving these guys into round 2. It doesn't make sense. And I'm not even gonna sugarcoat this and say, oh, one's worse than the other. They're all 3 horrible picks in round number 2, and I'd stay completely away from them. Don't go near them. Nico, Waddle, Adams, not going to do it. And there's a couple other names that flirt in round 2, but I think for the most part, the next guy is dropping into round 3 on the regular, so I'm going to save him for round 3. These are my must-avoids round number 2. Nico, Waddle, Adams. Sorry about it, guys. Let's go to round number 3. The same theme that we've been talking about is affecting round 3, round 4. It starts to normalize a little later as those early wide receiver drafters start trying to consume running backs, and it balances the scales a little bit. But in round 3, we still have a massive, let's pull everybody into round number 3 because we need wide receivers. And DJ Moore and Neighbors do sometimes flirt in round 2, which is crazy to me, which is absolutely head scratching to me. But even in round 3, they are risky picks. I'm not saying DJ Moore's bad. Understand what I'm saying. But DJ Moore in a crowded wide receiver room with a team that doesn't have a good history at all of developing quarterbacks, that has a rookie quarterback, this is a tough spot to be in. This is a tough spot to be consistent in. And as a third drafted player, again, would I like him around late 4 or even top of round 5? Yeah, that'd be a different DJ Moore that we're looking at. But DJ Moore as your third drafted player, counting on him to deliver week in and week out when there are names like Hurts or Josh Allen or Derrick Henry, other players that are just damn safer in round number 3, usually not wide receivers. This is why I'm becoming this year the king of the running back. I am the running back master in 2024. In fact, I am the rare breed, the rare bird running back master. And I'm going to continue to beat the drum on this topic because I feel like nobody has the courage to talk about it. This is a oversaturated market of consuming wide receiver, and these 2 guys, Neighbors without a QB, I mean, he's good, we love him, he'd be a pretty decent late 4th round player or top of round 5. The yardage might be there, but the touchdowns probably won't. Danny Dimes is a touchdown vulturing hog, and he's never produced a top 30 wide receiver in fantasy football. He may be the first guy that does deliver top 30 wide receiver numbers, sure, but he's got to do it all in the yardage department. These guys don't belong in round 3. We'd have a different conversation. We don't hate them. We'd have a different conversation in the 4 to 5 territory, but these are must avoids in round number 3. Don't go near them. And you notice that every single avoid player so far has been a wide receiver because of the pandemic that is reaching for wide receivers and trying to chase that opportunity that everybody thinks you need to chase in order to win in fantasy 2024. But you don't, and you're learning that here. Let's go to round number 4. I like Zay Flowers a lot. This is a moon man extraordinaire from last year. We love the guy, but as I just mentioned about Danny Dimes, Lamar Jackson doesn't produce top 25 wide receivers. He never has, and you might say this is the outlier. This is the year that it's going to happen, and that might be the case, but keep in mind that what's changed? They brought in Derrick Henry. What is going on that's different this year than last year? They want to run the ball more. They want to balance out things so that Lamar's not asked to do everything. So in a situation where the QB, we like him, no one's saying anything bad about Lamar. He's never produced a top 25 wide receiver. And this is the year they bring in Derrick Henry to consume more of the work whenever they're inside the 20-yard line. This is the year we expect Zay Flowers to become that guy. I don't think so. This is still an effect from the pandemic we're seeing of borrowing a wide receiver from the round after. In round 2, grabbing receivers from round 3. In round 3, grabbing receivers from round 4. Zay Flowers does not belong, and he sometimes does go in the 3rd round, which is, like I said, when Neighbors goes in round 2. I'm about as shocked and scratching my head as much when Flowers goes in round 3. But Flowers as your 4th drafted player, I venture to say when you look at your team after drafting Flowers in round 4, you're going, damn, looks like somebody raptured a 3rd rounder or 4th rounder from my team. And if I look at somebody's team that drafted Zay Flowers in the top 4 rounds, I sit there and I go, who was your 3rd rounder, bro? Who was your 4th rounder? I can't even tell. You did something wrong. And that's the nature of grabbing a guy 1 or 2 rounds too early because you want to have a wide receiver. And I get it. You know, you might be in a bind. You might be in a pinch. You might have got screwed and nudged out of grabbing good wide receivers because you did go heavy running back. And you know what? I'm willing to take that risk every time because of how I stack those other positions. But Tank Dell, much safer pick. Mahomes, if he's there in best ball, he falls in 4. Sometimes he doesn't. In non-best ball, sometimes he goes in 3. That's fantastic. You've got so many options in round 4 that I like so much better than Zay Flowers. Case in point, Laporta. I look, early tight end may not be your thing, but if Laporta falls, he's better there. ETN is better there. ETN's a proven commodity. Even Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco goes in round 4 like clockwork. And you're going to take Zay Flowers and bank on Lamar Jackson, making him a top 25 wide receiver, the first one Lamar's ever had, while they bring in Derrick Henry and try to go heavy, hardcore running. I'm going to go Pacheco every time. There are handfuls of players better than Zay Flowers. It's not about hating Zay Flowers. It's about saying there's a handful of players that are just better picks than Zay Flowers in round 4. And probably the next worst pick in round 4 has to be this guy, Christian Kirk. I don't even have the proper graphic ready for him. That's how much I would never take him or consider him in round 4. And I honestly don't understand this at all. You're going to get a lot of people that will defend it. I get it. There's a hardcore Christian Kirk fan club. Not saying he's bad, but he doesn't belong as your 4th drafted player. You show me a team that drafted Christian Kirk as their 4th drafted player. I show you a team that's not winning a championship. It's that simple. You could say whatever you want about him. I like Kirk. He gets good, consistent. Sure, that's great. But it doesn't make him a 4th round player, a 4th drafted player. Your team looks weak if you have Christian Kirk as your 4th drafted player. Plain and simple. Round number 5. You know, round number 5 is not that bad. There's not a ton of avoids. I think this is where the wide receiver running back balance normalizes a little bit. And I think that's why we see a lot of the busts and really bad picks kind of get eliminated and filtered out by now. But one player I see kind of often going in this territory, and I think it's a grave mistake. It is a ridiculous move for the most part. And I don't even think I have his graphic either that I can pull. So I have to actually, as I'm talking to you, search for it. But this is not a pick you want to make. This is not a player you want to draft in round number 5, your 5th drafted player, when he may not even be the number 1 wide receiver on his team. He's definitely not the number 1 pass catcher. He might not even be the number 3 pass catching option on his team the entirety of the year, and that is Xavier Worthy. I've seen him go around 5 quite a bit recently. I know a lot of people want him to be the answer, and maybe Rashee Rice misses half a year. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe that gets pushed into 2025, but we'll find out. But I think that even if you want to bank on this kid and he ends up being really good, and he could be really, really good, this is not the place to gamble on him and hope that he is your 5th drafted player. There are so many amazing players in this round, like Anthony Richardson. If you need a QB, Patrick Mahomes falls here in best ball. He won't fall here in non-best ball. Non-best ball people always say, like, what? Patrick Mahomes, he goes around 2 or 3. Your grandma leagues, the quarterbacks go higher, but in best ball, Mahomes falls to 5.1 to 5.4 all the time. Jacobs is here. This is fantastic territory for Jacobs. Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Isaiah Pacheco usually goes at 4, but he falls to the top of 5. This is definitely a territory to not be playing around with a Xavier Worthy when you can get names like that. So round 5 is still a very important round, a very critical round for getting elite talent. I would say like Rashee Rice is also an avoid here if for any reason he's going to go in this territory. Keenan Allen's another player that I do not like in this range. And even though Keenan Allen had a remarkable year last year, a really, really good year, he is changing teams. That is not good. He is in a crowded wide receiver room, as I said, with a quarterback that is a rookie, with a team that does not develop rookie quarterbacks. This is not a very good situation for Keenan Allen. And if he goes in round 4, it's bad. It's really bad. If he goes in round 5, it's still not a good look. These are two players still on the wide receiver front. It's amazing. We haven't had one running back avoid yet, aside from the little small conversation about Christian McCaffrey being 28 years old. We're all wide receivers. I didn't even plan this. This is completely improv. Okay, that's the way I do content. I like to do what I'm feeling in the moment. I don't do some scripted situation. I go live too much and record too much video to even dare script anything. So this is all natural, baby, all natural. And I don't know that there's any other avoids that scream out at round 5, because listen to round 5. Let me put round 5 on screen. This is round 5. This is a random Best Ball Mania draft, round number 5. And I told you Mahomes falls into round 5 in Best Ball Mania. It's in Underdog Fantasy. It's strange, but Pacheco goes at the very first pick, 5.1. Dalton Kincaid, Joe Mixon, McBride, Jacobs, Patrick Mahomes, Mark Andrews, Calvin Ridley. You could say that's a little risky. Anthony Richardson, Brian Thomas. That's a little early for Brian Thomas, but I wouldn't coin him as a void in round 5 because I don't think he goes in 5 enough. I think that was a reach right there. Jaden Reed. I don't hate Jaden Reed. I like him better in 6, but I don't hate him there. I don't hate Brian Thomas Jr. there. I just like both Reed and Thomas in 6 better than I like him in 7. And then there's Worthy, who, like I said, dances in this 5th round all the time. That's it. This is a really good round. It starts normalizing a lot, and there's so many good values in this round. This is not a scary round at all. Round number 6. Not a fan of Rashee Rice in round number 6. As I mentioned, I hate him in round number 5, but he's definitely looking at the likelihood of a half-year suspension. Again, this could get pushed out into 2025, no doubt about it. The way the NFL is looking at this thing, they're waiting until it concludes. So there's no way to know when Rashee Rice is going to miss time. And, it's still a very risky proposition, especially when you, like I said earlier, look at Kamara in round 6, 7. You still have players like Kenneth Walker. You have players like Kyle Pitts, Christian Watson, sometimes Jaden Reed, who went in this previous round in this draft that I showed you randomly, but he'll go here a lot of the time. There's just too many other options. It's not so much about is there value, it's about liking other players better. So I'm going to say no go on Rashee Rice at all inside round number 6. I think other players that don't make sense in this territory would be like Chris Godwin. I don't understand the Chris Godwin love. I understand what people are saying. They think he's going to get more work. He's going to move around. He's going to be in the slot more, but this is still a Baker Mayfield dependent situation, and I'm not on board that. There's not a lot of bad picks in this round, to be honest. It gets kind of to a point where it's preference at this stage in the game. I don't know that there's going to be as many bad picks the further we go into this, because we're going into a territory of, I don't know, it's preference. There's just no mistakes really being made necessarily in round 7, 8, 9. It's more about what are the best picks. Am I picking a better player? I just like other players better the further we go into these rounds versus calling them huge mistakes. So we're going to leave Rashee Rice here just because he fits the bill for the biggest mistake, given that he could miss half a year, if not more. So Rashee Rice, you're the winner of this round. Let's go to round 7. Round 7, as I mentioned, CJ Stroud goes here. Okay, JSN goes here. I love both those picks right here. Deontay Johnson is going here. Let's throw Deontay as the potential mistake of this round. Deontay is not somebody that I'm going to be taking in my fantasy football draft as a 7th round pick when I can get CJ Stroud. Even in best ball, when I have my quarterback already, let's say I've got Jalen Hurts, I'll go bully QB because of the optimal scoring with CJ Stroud before I take Deontay Johnson. I'm looking at right now CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray going in round number 7. It's ridiculous. CJ Stroud has no business in round number 7. He probably on average goes in round 6, but I'll show you the board right here. This is an absolute crazy random draft, so this is not out of pocket. But yeah, you have this at this bottom round 7, CJ Stroud, McConkey, Deontay Johnson, Monty, Evan Ingram, Najee, Coleman. I love Coleman here. Coleman's a great pick here. Jameson Williams, Jonathan Brooks, Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray. These are all great picks. There's nothing really wrong with any of these guys. Deontay's the only guy I'm going to call out saying I don't like this pick, but this is again getting to a territory where it's like it's just about preference at this point. There's no real standout, stick out like a sore thumb type of bad pick, except for Deontay. I don't like that pick at all. Round number 8, same thing. I'm not too concerned about anything in round 8 personally, except for I can't stand the Caleb Williams pick in this round. I think he's not the safest pick here. I think DeAndre Swift's going to fail. So that would be a pick I would avoid, but I don't necessarily think people making this kind of decision here in round number 8 is making a grave mistake. I just think there are better options. I love Zach Moss and Zamir White and Ferguson and Jalen Warren and Ramondre Stevenson and potentially a few others that aren't even in this round, more than I like Caleb and DeAndre Swift. But again, this is all getting toward the range of preference and not mistakes given this late in the draft. Those are my avoids for rounds 1 through 8, 2024. Appreciate you. Make sure you watch the best picks in each round, rounds 1 through 8. That link is in the description. I'll see you all later. Appreciate you. Get out of here. Don't forget, I'm live Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and live whenever big news breaks. I'm always live on this channel. I'm live most midnights doing drafts and all kinds of conversations, taking phone calls, but we are live Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and additionally live whenever news breaks. Now get out of here.